All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We're going to get right into it today with the first of our 8 series previews. Starting in the Eastern Conference with the 4-5 matchup, the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the New York Knicks. Going to dive into this series from a bunch of different angles. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Volume's YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements. Also going to be doing a lot more footage breakdowns on my Twitter feed as we head into the playoffs. And last but not least, if for whatever reason you guys miss one of these episodes and you can't get back over to YouTube to finish, don't forget you can find them wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. All right, let's talk some basketball. So a couple of series notes here before we get into the weeds. The Cavs are a -205 favorite. That's a significant favorite to win the series right now. I do think that's inflated by the Julius Randle news, though. The Knicks won the season series 3-1, including winning 3 in a row. They won a game where they held them to just 81 points. They won a game where Julius Randle lit them up for 36 points and hit the eventual game winner. And then they won a game in Cleveland where Julius Randle was out and Jalen Brunson had a monster night. I think he had almost 50 and he outplayed Donovan Mitchell to beat the Cavs in Cleveland. So the Cavs have been the better team all season from a standings and a big picture standpoint, but the Knicks have been a better team within this matchup. They both have an elite top 5 unit. The Cavs have the best defense in the league by defensive rating, and the Knicks are the 4th best offense in the league, and both teams are top 7 in net rating. So both teams probably feel very good about their chances. I think this is by far the most interesting series in the Eastern Conference first round. East is a little rough there in that first round. A lot of somewhat uninteresting matchups. Hopefully we get Miami-Boston to get one more interesting look. But everything will get entertaining once we get to round 2 with how good the top of that conference is. But I wanted to start with Knicks-Cavs because this is my favorite series out east. On the Julius Randle front, he sprained his ankle a couple weeks ago. I expect him to play. So moving forward with this breakdown, I'm going to be moving forward under the assumption that Julius Randle plays in every game and that he's roughly 80% of what he was before the injury. Just think like a little out of shape and a little out of rhythm. I'm expecting that as part of this calculus that I'm looking forward in this series. And then obviously if he's out and misses a significant chunk of the series, that makes this a whole lot easier, doesn't it? Because in the playoffs, with the way they'll be able to load up on Jalen Brunson, I'm just not sure how they'd be able to win without Julius Randle. So obviously that's a big swing factor there, but we're going to move forward as though he is healthy. So last year, the way we did these series previews is we kind of just did offense, defense. So we'd kind of focus on one side of the ball for both teams, and then we'd focus on the other side of the ball when the other team had possession and what those matchups would look like. I want to do it a little bit different this year. I want to kind of look at big picture matchups, and I want to bounce around between both sides of the floor as a result of that. I think it allows us to kind of target the specific battles that a team has to win in order to win a series. We'll see if it lasts through all 8 breakdowns, but that's how I'm doing this one to start. So first of all, as we're looking at the shot creators for both teams, I kind of look at RJ Barrett and Caris LeVert as 2 different sides of the same coin. They're both tertiary shot creators who are both kind of like frustrating for their fan bases from time to time. Like RJ Barrett can get tunnel vision and really start to play kind of on an island with himself, and he can really force the ball to his left-hand side and is pretty heavy to the basket, not a good jump shooter. And then Caris LeVert's kind of the opposite of that, the same type of kind of tunnel vision guy, but he's much more of a pull-up jump shooter, and he shoots the ball well from 3. He's actually one of the better pull-up three-point shooters that we have in the league, but he takes a lot of pull-up jump shots. So it's a similar type of frustration that you experience with RJ Barrett, just kind of in a different archetype offensively. I kind of look at those 2 guys as a wash, and I would imagine that both fan bases will be largely frustrated with them throughout the series. I do think RJ Barrett is a slightly better defensive player than Caris LeVert, but not enough to have a major impact on this series. And I don't think Caris LeVert is a weak point defensively. So what I want to focus in on is the Brunson versus Mitchell matchup and the Randle versus Garland matchup, because those are the 2 shot creation matchups that I do see having a large impact on the outcome of the series. So first of all, Donovan Mitchell is the best player in the series. He deserves that recognition going in. He's got a much more extensive playoff resume, and I think overall right now he's just a little bit better. But that's the key there. I do think it's a lot closer than people think. Going into this series, it's funny, I was talking with my buddy Josh, who's on our production staff here at the Volume for Hoops Tonight, and he's a big Knicks fan, and he was talking on Twitter the other day about how Knicks fans are very at peace with the Jalen Brunson, Donovan Mitchell situation, having not got Donovan Mitchell over the summer. And, I was pretty critical of the Knicks for not, being more aggressive to get Donovan Mitchell. That said, the reality is Jalen Brunson being as good as he ended up being is what made it so that the Knicks fans could move on. That's why they're kind of at peace with it. Had Jalen Brunson been more or less what he was with the Mavericks, it might have been more frustrating because Donovan Mitchell is, legitimately a second-tier superstar, right? And Jalen Brunson was something beneath that. But Jalen Brunson has gone up a level in this season, even above and beyond what he was in last year's postseason, which was a legitimate 20-point-per-game score, right? This season, he's actually been better than Donovan Mitchell in every single phase of shot creation. I wanted to break this down for you guys. First of all, Donovan Mitchell in pick and roll, 1.1 points per possession, including passes. Jalen Brunson, 1.08. Not much of a gap there. In isolation, Donovan Mitchell, 1.02 points per possession, including passes. Jalen Brunson, 1.1. So significantly better beating switches in isolation. And Jalen Brunson has a whole post-up element to his game. He's actually run 80 post-ups this year for 76 points, including back in the game that they played in January where the Knicks won 105-103, in crunch time, he had a play where he backed Donovan Mitchell down to kind of the elbow and hit him with a turnaround jumper. Very important shot in that game out of the post over the top of Donovan Mitchell. He's actually been a more successful shot creator, and a big part of that is he's just a much, much better passer than Donovan Mitchell. I think that's kind of what allows him to bridge that gap despite not being the otherworldly scoring force that Donovan Mitchell has been throughout his entire career, including in the postseason. I think Donovan, and you'll see that particularly at the end of games, because Donovan Mitchell can have a little bit of that Russell Westbrook thing going on where he can force the action and play hero ball a lot, whereas Jalen Brunson is a little more methodical, a little bit more of a slow down and patiently make reads kind of guy. I think that's what allows him to bridge that gap despite not being the same level of athlete and shot maker that Donovan Mitchell is. But I still, especially when we factor in the nature of the postseason, the way that physicality increases, the way that your athleticism becomes a bigger advantage in that setting, I still give Donovan Mitchell as a clear edge as the best player in the series because of, and I think he's earned that right going in, given the way that he's played in his postseason career. But it's not much of an advantage in my opinion. But I would say that he is the best player in the series. And also, I wouldn't be surprised if we looked back 2 weeks from now and Jalen Brunson had outplayed him. But going into the series, I think from a prediction standpoint, that's a matchup that the Cavs will win in favor of Donovan Mitchell by some small margin. Randle versus Garland. These are the two bona fide secondary shot creators. I actually think Randle has a significant edge here, kind of a similar size edge to what I'd give Mitchell over Jalen Brunson. He's been more efficient as both a pick and roll shot creator and ISO shot creator than Darius Garland this year. He's averaging 1.07 points per pick and roll, including passes, compared to 1.03 for Darius Garland. 1.02 points per ISO compared to 0.87 for Garland, not a strength in his game, and 1.06 points per post-up. And this is an important part that I've talked a lot about with Julius Randle this year. One of my favorite parts of his game, and something that I think translates really well to the postseason, is that classic, we run an action or we sprint down in transition and get a cross match, but whatever it is, Julius Randle gets a smaller defender on him. And they space the floor. The Knicks are an excellent spot-up team. They're third in the league in converting spot-up possessions into points. And he can back his way down to that 10, 15-foot area and just hit somebody with his shoulder and go to that fadeaway over his left shoulder that he can hit at a high clip. And that is rock fight basketball. That's the kind of thing that doesn't depend on getting a ton of legs into a shot that's a 26-foot step back shot. You know what I mean? It's a shot that is very dependable on that stage of the NBA playoffs, especially when you have a size advantage. Julius Randle's had an incredibly impressive scoring season this year, and it's a big part of why the Knicks have been so good offensively this year. And I think the last thing kind of as a team perspective, because as I look at that again, it's pretty even. You've got the two guards that are your high pick and roll shot creators, and then you've got this big forward for the Knicks, and then another more playmaking oriented guard for the Cavs, and then you've got these two weird tertiary creators in RJ Barrett and Karis LeVert. But there's more variety in what the New York Knicks do, and I think that in combination with their spot up talent is a big part of why I think they've been the better offensive team this year. Everything the Cavs do is at a high pick and roll. As we told you earlier, Mitchell is not nearly as good at converting isolation possessions as Randle and Brunson. He's much more of a pick and roll shot creator. And Darius Garland's bad at converting isolation possessions. He's a pick and roll shot creator. So everything the Cavs do is at a high pick and roll. In fact, they ran the fourth most pick and rolls in the league this year. And the most among the solidified playoff teams in the top 6 in both conferences. So simply put, among the teams that have playoff spots locked down, nobody runs more pick and roll than the Cavs. They're a very one-dimensional approach in that regard. Whereas with the Knicks, both Brunson and Randle can run pick and roll, but they both can beat you in switches in both the ISO and out of the post. There's a lot of variety with the way that they can attack. We saw in the last matchup between these two teams, Jalen Brunson torched the Cavs at a high pick and roll, hitting pull-up threes down the stretch. But then in their previous matchup back in January, we saw Jalen Brunson in the entire fourth quarter pretty much turn his back to the basket and operate out of the post on that right elbow, right? So there's just a little bit more variety with what the Knicks do, which makes them harder to defend. And then they're much, much better at converting spot-up possessions. That's a key factor in this series. The Knicks are the third best spot-up team in the league, and the Cavs are the fifth worst spot-up team in the league. They're 26th in the league at converting spot-up possessions. So that's where you get that big gap on the offensive end of the floor. Another big matchup part I wanted to look at here, and this is where we zoom in on the spotting up side of things. Josh Hart versus the plethora of Cavs players that are going to play at the forward position in various off-ball 3-and-D roles. I remember I was initially confused by the Josh Hart acquisition. It didn't really make sense to me because it was kind of like an all-in type of trade. If I remember correctly, they gave up a first-round pick. It was very much like the type of move you expect a team that has real championship aspirations to go after. But hey, it was an indicator that the Knicks clearly are thinking that way. And he's been absolutely amazing for them. He's an excellent defender with the versatility to guard both forwards and guards. He's an outstanding spot-up player because of his combination of the ability to respectively knock down threes while also being good at attacking closeouts. That's a highly underrated part of spotting up because that's what allows you to, on the possessions where they chase you off the line or you pump fake and go beat someone off the dribble, that's what allows you to convert those into points by either attacking the basket with athleticism or making that awesome next read to the right guy who's going to be able to convert the possession. That's an important part of the game of basketball that gets overlooked when we just stare at three-point percentages. But Josh Hart is converting spot-up opportunities at 1.25 points per possession since joining the Knicks. Here's how insane that is. A guy like Michael Porter Jr. for the Nuggets is converting him at about 1.3 points per spot-up possession. So he's just a small level beneath the best spot-up players in the league since joining the Knicks. And he does all these other little things well. Cuts to the basket well, averages 2 offensive rebounds per game, gets a lot of offense, turns many of those just into putbacks. He's the perfect glue guy to put the Knicks together. In fact, in 344 possessions this year, with Randle, Brunson, and Hart on the floor together, the Knicks are outscoring teams by 18.1 points per 100 possessions, which is amazing. As a comparison, albeit in a much larger season-long sample size, the Knicks sample size is shrunk by the fact that Hart was traded for, and then Jalen Brunson missed some time with that foot injury, and then Julius Randle's missed some time with the ankle, so they haven't played as much together. But in a much larger sample size, that Cavs unit, let's just narrow it down to their best forward with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, those 3 guys are just 7.1 points positive per 100 possessions. Again, much larger sample size, never an apples-to-apples comparison, but it just goes to show you, as a point of reference, how dominant the Knicks have been when they've had Randle and Brunson with a guy like Josh Hart to tie it all together with all the little things that he does well. This particular matchup, the Josh Hart versus the Cavs wings matchup, I think is going to be one of the biggest swing factors in the series. Because like I said, slight edge to Mitchell over Brunson, slight edge to Randle over Garland, Karis LeVert, RJ Barrett, who the hell knows what's going to happen with those guys. This is going to be a massive swing factor in this series, in my opinion. That idea of what Josh Hart can do off the ball as a glue guy to put everything together. And obviously Evan Mobley does this in a very different way for Cleveland. We're going to talk about him here in a minute. I have a whole kind of like segment put together for Evan Mobley. But that specific matchup is something I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on. Because here's the deal. This is the way I look at it. If Donovan Mitchell's the best player in the series, and if the Cavs have home court advantage, and there's a little bit of a question mark surrounding Julius Randle and his ankle, and Cleveland's defensive front line, the Jared Allen, Evan Mobley thing, and all they can do to dominate teams on the interior, if Josh Hart was on the Cavs, I'd be picking the Cavs in a heartbeat. But Josh Hart and the overall, Quentin Grimes, the Emmanuel Quickly, the overall, as a group, much more aggregate offensive skill and ball handling and shooting from the role players, depth on the bench. That is the biggest swing factor for me in this series. That's what allows a team like the Knicks to overcome all those advantages that I just broke down for the Cavs. And with the Cavs wings, and again, they generate just 1.02 points per spot at possession, which is 26th in the league. It's like guys like Isaac Okoro, Lamar Stevens, Chetty Osman, Dean Wade. The Danny Green trade just isn't moving well enough for them to use him. All of them have either not been hitting shots well enough, not attacking closeouts well enough, or doing those things well but not defending well enough for it to matter. And that's so important for the Cavs in particular because they love to use their forward, whether that's Lamar Stevens or Isaac Okoro. They love to use that guy to take primary point of attack assignments, like guard the other team's best guard. And so going with an offensive option there puts you in a predicament where now you have to ask Darius, Garland, and Donovan Mitchell to do that. And not only are they not good at that, but they're also guys that have an enormous amount of offensive responsibility on a team that doesn't really have much offensive skill beyond their two guards. And so it kind of puts them in this predicament where they don't know who to play. Now, the biggest optimism point there is Isaac Okoro has been shooting extremely well since going into the starting lineup. In 38 games since joining the starting lineup, he's shooting 44% from three. And again, he's probably the best point of attack defender on the roster. He's probably going to draw the Jalen Brunson assignment from the opening tip of game one of this series. And so it's whether or not the Cavs can somehow level out that matchup a little bit by having guys like Isaac Okoro shoot the lights out, by having Lamar Stevens knock down more threes than he's been hitting, by getting something out of Dean Wade and Chetty Osman, that could go a long way to leveling things out. So here's the deal. I think the Knicks are going to win this series. I'm picking them in 6 games. Now, before I go any further, this is an obligatory thing that I have to do. Predictions are hard. These are just my best guesses. If it was easy to do this, we'd all be in Vegas instead of watching these games as fans. We'd all be in Vegas gambling on these games. This is the beauty of the game of basketball. It is a living organism of a 5-man unit. It is extremely difficult to predict. That's where the fun is. So just because I predict one team over another doesn't mean I'm going to be right. I'm going to pick 8 series. Guarantee you I get more than one of them wrong. It's just the nature of the game of basketball. And if I do get all 8 right, it's going to be pure luck. But part of my job is I have to make a pick. I'm going to pick the Knicks to win the series in 6 games. But the Cavs absolutely have a chance to win the series. Hell, they're favored to do it. I would imagine most of you guys listening disagree with me. And so I want to provide a case for why I think the Cavs can win. Now, again, just quick recap, the way the Knicks can win. I think their shot creators are a little bit better and a little more versatile, which is important in the playoffs. I think their ability to help off of Evan Mobley in the small forward position will allow them to defend well enough in this matchup, despite not being a great defensive team during the regular season. The Knicks were 18th in defense during the regular season, allowing about 114.2 points per 100 possessions. But they have guarded Cleveland well. They have a 109.4 defensive rating against Cleveland. And to give you a perspective, Cleveland's 109.9 defensive rating is best in the league. So they've been defending at a much higher level in this particular matchup against Cleveland, in large part because of their ability to help off those forwards, to help them with rim protection. And guards are actually the strength of the Knicks defense. Jalen Brunson is a slightly above average point of attack defender. Emmanuel Quickley is a good point of attack defender. Josh Hart is a good point of attack defender. And RJ Barrett is an above average point of attack defender. That's where the strength of their defense is. It's, some of the limitations with Mitchell Robinson and whether or not they can keep him on the floor offensively versus going with someone like Isaiah Hartenstein and then Julius Randle who can come and go defensively. That's where the weakness of their defense is. And don't get me wrong, I don't think the Knicks can win the title, but I think they can defend well enough to beat a Cleveland team. And then I think the big guy to watch for the Knicks in the series again is Josh Hart. I bet you his winning impact screams off of the screen in every single one of these games. But let's talk about how the Cavs can win. I wrote down 4 specific swing factors for the Cavs, 4 battles that I think they need to win in order to win the series. First of all, Donovan Mitchell needs to play like the best player in the series. He needs to clearly win the matchup with Jalen Brunson. And specifically, I want to look at decision-making. Again, the Cavs have been a little bit underwhelming in clutch situations this year, although they've been better as of late. They finished the year 24-21 in games involving clutch situations, which is fine. It's not awful. But this is a team that won 51 games and had the 6th best record in the league. So they have underperformed in clutch situations relative to what their record is. Donovan Mitchell has a tendency to force things sometimes. In that specific game, down the stretch like we talked about back in January, Jalen Brunson, it's 100 to 100, kind of methodically, is working out of the post, doesn't really get enough of an advantage, so he just shovels it to Julius Randle. Doesn't force it, just shovels it to Julius Randle. Julius was feeling good about his shot that night, rises up and hits a 3 in Jared Allen's face. Next 2 possessions for the Cavs were Donovan Mitchell getting blocked at the rim and turning the ball over. In transition possessions where he had no advantage and he just forced it. Just tried to pile drive his way to the basket. And bad stuff happened. He just has that little bit of, it's almost like too much confidence in his own ability to be able to kind of slow things down and let the game come to him. He has to be able to rein that in because he is a more dynamic scorer. He is a better athlete. He should be the best player in this series. Jalen Brunson's best way to outplay him in this series is in clutch situations. So that's where Donovan Mitchell has to kind of rein things in. If he wins that matchup convincingly, that's a huge step forward for the Cavs. Number 2, find a way to limit Julius Randle's bully ball. Now, in film, one of the best ways I saw this was putting Jared Allen on him. He's got a good amount of muscle mass and size and length to be able to absorb those Julius Randle shoulders to contest shots. Forced Julius Randle into a lot of long threes that he was hitting because he's Julius Randle and he can get hot, right? But I actually thought he did a good job of taking away the easier shots that Julius is known to get sometimes. I think that also kind of puts Evan Mobley in a position where he can kind of help and roam around. Obviously, that's a little bit of a gamble against a Knicks team with guys like Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson that relentlessly attack the offensive glass. But I think it lines up their matchups pretty well. I think somehow finding a way to take away those easy shots that Julius Randle can get at the rim and in the short to mid range, maybe through a matchup like Jared Allen, I think could go a long way. Third, Isaac Okoro needs to shoot over 40% from 3 in this series. Again, he's their best point of attack defender. He is shooting 44% from 3 since joining the starting lineup. That's a 38-game sample size. That's almost half a season. But the Knicks will not guard him. He is not a good closeout attacker. Does not have a good, well-rounded skill set. So it's either knocking down the 3 or not much else from those kickouts. And so he has to hit them at such a high rate that it really hurts the Knicks when they help off of him. In fact, this year, out of 126 players in the league, to log at least 200 spot-up possessions, Isaac Okoro is converting them 100th out of 126 players. Less than a point per possession. That's not good. And that's why the Knicks are going to leave him wide open. A lot of big Cavs games this year have come down to Isaac Okoro corner threes. And we all remember the Brooklyn one, where, that crazy Donovan Mitchell offensive rebound on the free throw that gets kicked by a really nice swing pass from Karis LeVert across the court. Isaac Okoro hits the shot. Big time bucket for a Cavs team that desperately needed a good clutch win like that. But go back to January against the Knicks, and Julius Randle hits a three from the top of the key. A couple possessions later, there's a possession that ends up in a wide open Isaac Okoro three in the left corner to tie the game, and he missed that one. Same spot, missed that one. So a lot of these possessions, especially with Tom Thibodeau and the way that he likes to guard, a lot of these possessions are going to end in Isaac Okoro open in the corner. Can he hit them at a high enough clip to kind of mitigate some of that Josh Hart advantage that I was talking so much about? That would go a long way towards giving the Cavs a chance. And then last but not least, and this is where Evan Mobley comes in, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen have to utterly dominate the interior of this series on both ends of the floor. That's their biggest advantage from a personnel standpoint in the series. Julius Randle obviously offensively presents a bunch of issues, but he's not a great defensive player. And if Jared Allen can somewhat win that matchup defensively with him and limit his effectiveness and force him into a bad series. And Evan Mobley's been scoring really well. He's gone up a leap in the last half of the season. In his last 38 games, not counting the Sunday game when he barely played, he's averaging 19 points per game on 56% shooting. To go with his usual lights out, versatile defense, blocking almost 2 shots per game. He's shooting 73% at the rim this year. He's shooting 54% on floaters. That's that Anthony Davis little push shot in the lane that's so important. If he just kicks everyone's ass and Jared Allen can mitigate some of that Julius Randle advantage and you get something like 20 and 10 out of Evan Mobley, it's just as an athletic wrecking ball everywhere on the floor, that's another huge swing factor for the Cavs. So to kind of wrap it all together here, I'm picking the Knicks in 6. I think they're a better and more versatile shot creation team. I think they're much better spotting up off the ball. They've defended Cleveland really well this year. And overall, I think the Knicks have better role players with a deeper bench. But the Cavs' best chance is Donovan Mitchell soundly outplays Jalen Brunson. They dominate the interior on both ends of the floor with Mobley and Allen. They contain Julius Randle's bully ball attack and turn him into a jump shooter. And then Isaac Okoro needs to shoot lights out. If they can check those boxes, I think the Cavs run away with this series. All right, that's all I have for our first series preview. I believe next we're doing the Warriors versus the Kings. That one will be up sometime later in the day here on Tuesday. So keep an eye on the feeds. And then don't forget Tuesday night after Lakers-Wolves, we will be doing an instant reaction video to the 2-7-8 games. As always, I appreciate you guys. It's going to be a wild week, but I appreciate you guys rocking with me, and I'll see you tomorrow.